rehearsal. You're rehearsing what happened to you throughout the day, so you remember it. That's, by the way, why people, when they're at the part of their life when their mind's changing the most, which is when they're newborns and when they're adolescents. That's why it's at that stage when they need the most sleep. When they're old like me, they don't, it's not a whole lot going on. I can get by with less sleep than I used to. Okay, class implications. Since we don't really know how long it takes for memory to become consolidated, because it varies between people, we do know that you need to let learning take time. You can't just keep pushing stuff. I'm thinking of like our new math curriculum. There's this one chapter where it's got everything you'd ever want to know about triangles all crammed into 4 days. It's really impossible to teach it. I should say this, it's very difficult to teach it because it's a lot of information, but it is completely impossible to learn everything about triangles for the first time in 4 days. It's just too much. It's just scalene, isosceles, equilateral, acute, it's hard, okay? So we also know that you need to let people sleep a lot. You don't expect them to know everything until they've had a chance to process it and process it in their sleep. Building in reviews and rehearsals is very useful, and make sure that it's the right kind of rehearsal. For motor activities, rote rehearsal is probably the best. For cognitive activities, probably elaborate rehearsal. Okay. Also, this is crucial. Most learning is incidental. I talked about this morning, where most of what we learn, and looking back thousands of years, all of what we learn incidentally. We learn looking for it ourselves, or we learn just by walking around and picking things up and learning about them. Deliberate learning is a place where we're forcing people to basically do something that they're not wired to do. We're not wired to sit into a classroom and listen to one person talk. It's difficult, okay? And we get restless. So when we're doing that, we need to understand that it's if whenever we can, to take advantage of the brain's natural inclination towards incidental learning and learning through projects, learning through discovery, because that's really the way we learn, okay? All right, so explain to somebody at the neurological level how you most likely learn to write your name. Who was there to show you? What did you do? How did that progress? And how is it that you can now write your name accurately?
Learning is good learning. Because at the time we didn't associate with others. We just copied and copied, right? Our parents were just trying to do it. At the time, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fine. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your questions too.
Really very good.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sold the first copies for $10. Now
I'll give you about 30 of them for free.
This one's not yours. I need one.
Did you get, I gave him one.
This is an extra.
Oh, here, want another one?
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, so many times it's people, it's always people everywhere. Like somebody
All right, so we started talking about how scientists came up with their ideas of the brain, how they think the brain works, the structures and the functions. We've been talking about sensory memory, working memory, long-term memory, how memory is stored, how memory is retrieved, how memory is lost forever. Okay. The rest of the session is going to be on classroom implications, so more practical stuff. So there's 3 levels of learning. Okay. So this first is the concrete experience. That's the most vivid. And for little kids, that's really the only way they can actually learn something. If you think about how you learned about animals, you probably saw one first. Maybe you were going for a walk and your father showed you a dog and explained to you that this is a dog, you know, and maybe let you touch the dog and pet the dog, that's your experience. And so then you got dog, and then maybe later on you saw another animal and you thought that was a dog, and you said, no, it's a cat. It's like a dog, kind of, but it's a little different, but they're both animals. So now you've got this experience. Okay, I've seen a dog, I've seen a cat, I know they're both animals. So then your dad took you to the zoo, and you see a giraffe, and you think, well, is that a dog? No, it's a giraffe. It's another kind of animal. So you saw all these animals, and so pretty soon you have this whole experience, and you get this whole concept of animals. They're like people, kind of, because they walk around, but they don't seem like people. They don't wear any clothes, and they don't talk. So these are animals, okay? So then later on, your dad and your parent, they can't take you to show you every animal, so they give you books, and they sit down with you and they show you, see, this is a picture of the lion. That's another animal. It's kind of like a cat. You look at, there's a bird. It's like an animal. It's another kind of animal. It flies. So you can learn that way. That would be symbolic or representational learning. Okay, you're seeing pictures. You don't see the animal, just a picture of the animal. Okay, and then as you get a little bit older, you can actually learn things without even seeing pictures of them. Like you've probably all read, maybe or at least heard about the Harry Potter books, where there's animals that are completely described in words and there's no pictures until the movies came out. But you can learn about those because you've got such a vivid concept of animal. When she describes an animal that has 3 heads, you can say, oh, okay, I can see an animal, it's got 3 heads. It makes sense. I can see it in my mind. That's abstract learning, okay? Reading or talking about new animals. Thinking about fractions, which is a very difficult concept for us to teach, okay? If you want to teach it first in the concrete way, when I teach my kids how to do fractions, I'll give strips of paper. I'll say, okay, fold 1 in half, color 1/2, or fold, okay, that's 1/2. It's one, there's 2 parts all together. Now I'm going to show you how 1/2 and 2/4 are the same thing, because we're going to make that same paper into 4 pieces and color 2 of them. See how 1/2 and 2/4 are the same thing? That's concrete. If I use a picture like this, say, okay, just draw lines on the same thing there. See how 1/2 and 2/4 are the same things, even though you've got you only have 1 piece of paper. So that'd be more representational. So it's kind of a subtle difference between these two. Now, abstract is this, okay? That doesn't really, there's nothing about the 1 over the 2 that is in any relation to, other than the concept, that picture or that picture, okay? It's a completely abstract symbol for that or for that, okay? Making curriculum meaningful, real life problems. So one of the things I did with my students a few years ago is that we made a boat together. I had to teach a unit on measurement, and so I thought, well, it'd be really fun, instead of just teaching the kids how to measure stuff and have them measure kind of boring things, I get them emotionally involved, and they would actually build a boat together. And they did that. That's the boat we made. And so they learned how to cut the materials out. They had to draw it on this wood, and then they learned how to saw, on a straight line, and they did all the planning. I tried to make it so that I didn't touch the wood at all. They did all that together. So they learned a lot of really cool things just by on this project. And then at the end, they finally finished their boat. And these kids were like 10. And I said, before we can take it to the water and float in it, you have to be able to prove to me that it's going to float. And they said, of course it's going to float. I go, well, how to prove it's going to float? So we talked about the concept of density. So if something is lighter, lighter than water, it's going to float. If it's heavier, so we measured coins and saw how they sinked and all that. So anyway, so the project itself was so meaningful that they learned a lot of concepts working on this project, okay? But if you don't want to do something quite so complicated, you can think about just growing plants in the classroom. They grow them, they name them, they measure them every day, they see how they're growing, they want to know, what's making this thing grow? How come the leaves are getting bigger? Why are those leaves dying? When we do that, we fertilize the plants with little bees glued onto a toothpick, and then they want to know why the flowers fall off. So we talk about, well, the plant's done with the flower, served its purpose, it's been fertilized by the bee, the plant no longer needs to send energy to the flower, so the petals are falling off. So nobody knocked your petals off, planted that on purpose. Okay? Role playing, I think I talked about that already. The kids act out concepts and ideas in social studies, ways of making it meaningful. So if you think about why would that enhance learning? Well, they have to work with and they have to process learning that they think and talk about. So when you're at a neurological level, when my kids are, thinking about that, that canoe and how, I think I know how to measure it, and they're going home at night and talking about that, it's basically another form of elaborative rehearsal where they're making those synapses grow stronger, so they really understand the idea of measuring and following a particular line, or when they're talking about their story path character and they're processing the ideas and the concepts that they learned, they're just doing some more elaborative rehearsal. Okay? They also become emotionally involved in their learning because, we know that when emotion plays a huge role in it, when it's something that they've been working on, it's theirs, they're going to remember it. They own it. Okay? And it fits into their schema. Oh, and also, what I like about projects like that is that the learning is slow. Okay? You're not throwing a bunch of ideas and skills like that triangle thing at them all at the same time. It's sensible and it's incidental. They learn by experience, by doing something.
How do you
I'm sorry?
You go back to that last the way new learning is slow, sensible, and how can be incidental when you're teaching it
Well,
consciously?
because I'm using the constructivist approach where I'm setting the stage for the children to learn something incidentally that I want them to learn incidentally. That's a difference between a completely progressive approach where a teacher comes to school in the morning with absolutely no lesson plans, just a classroom full of stuff, and the kids are free to learn whatever they want to do, whenever or if ever. And the difference between progressivism and constructivism is constructivism, there's a certain structure. Okay, we're all going to be learning about measurement, we're all going to be learning about colonization, but I'm going to make sure that, to the extent that I can, that we're going to learn it incidentally. So we're going to learn about what it was like for the Native Americans to have their land taken away by the Europeans. We're going to learn that not by reading about how, angry they were, but by actually